Demeter, goddess of harvest. Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods, married a nymph goddess, Medusa, and wound up swallowing her to avoid her ever having a son who might overpower him. From their union came Athena, an Olympian goddess. Then Zeus married a Titan, Themis, and had a number of children who cared about justice and peace and government. Then he married another nymph, Eurynome, a sister to his first wife, and she bore him 3 daughters with cheeks as round and fresh as apples, called the Graces. And then Zeus took a 4th wife. Yes, his 4th wife. She was his sister, the goddess Demeter. None of Zeus' wives were frivolous, yet none were anywhere near as solid as Demeter. Her hair was the rich gold of ripening wheat. Her fragrant shoulder was a welcoming cushion for a baby's head. All she needed to do was smile, and fruit trees blossomed and bore so many sweetnesses that they bent nearly to the earth with their abundance. All she needed to do was glance lovingly, and greens shot up from the loamy soil and spread thick, dark, nourishing leaves. She was the goddess of the bountiful harvest, and the whole world counted on her generosity. She made Zeus feel cared for, safe, like his grandmother Gaia had made him feel. Perhaps Gaia sensed this. Perhaps she felt a small tingle of jealousy. Demeter bore to Zeus a single daughter, Persephone. The girl had thin arms, pearl white. She gave off the scent of night jasmine. Light played on her face, making her appear as varied and rich with colors as a meadow of flowers. Her ankles were slight, adding grace to agility. Demeter doted on her. How could she not? Persephone played often with the nymph daughters of Oceanus, for they were all of like mind, laughing, blithesome lovelies. One day they gamboled through soft grasses decorated with narcissi, crocuses, violets, irises, hyacinths. And the Olympian god Hades, from the underworld below, noticed Persephone's ankles, those trim little things. Those quick little things. There was nothing in Tartarus quite like them. Delicate, delicate ankles, spider webs glistening with dew in a forest dawn. Hades was enamored of her. But she was his brother Zeus' daughter. So he spoke of his love to Zeus, the king who knew next to nothing about a father's duty. How could he, being the son of Cronus, the great swallower? Zeus left the raising of his many children to his many wives. So Zeus turned to Gaia, Mother Earth, for help. Gaia should have known better than to be lured in. But maybe that tingle came to her again. Maybe her eyes smarted just a little at the very name of Demeter. Gaia put forth a most radiant flower from the center of her being, a single root with 100 blossoms whose perfume wafted over the far seas. Persephone didn't have a chance. She reached for the treasure and, oh, the earth opened and Hades grabbed her. Snatched. Gone. Demeter sped like a wild bird over land and sea, searching. She ate nothing, drank nothing, slept not at all. Her cheeks grew hollow, her body gaunt. Greens turned brown. Fruits withered to dust. Hunger twisted the innards of every living creature. And all this time Zeus simply watched. But Hecate, the great-granddaughter of 2 Titans, had pity and told Demeter what had happened. Demeter shrank in upon herself, biting her own fists in rage and frustration. Not until life on Earth was threatened with imminent famine did Zeus finally send his winged son Hermes to fetch the girl. And so Persephone was returned to Demeter. But Hades had put in her mouth a single pomegranate seed and the winsome girl had swallowed it. Alas! Because she had tasted anything, even this tiny morsel, on her brief and miserable stint in the underworld, she was obliged to spend 1/3 of every year there as Hades' wife. The other 2/3 of the year, she spent with her mother Demeter. Hence the earth sprouts and flowers and fruits through spring and summer and autumn, when Demeter and Persephone hold hands in the fields. But the world turns bare and unyielding through winter, when Persephone returns to Hades and bereft Demeter mourns. Apollo, god of music. Lido, the daughter of Titans, walked in black robes. Not because she didn't like colors. No, she adored colors. Lido's favorite thing was walking after a downpour under a sky made marvelous by the trick of Iris and Helios. Iris was the granddaughter of Pontus and a Titan, and Helios, the sun itself, was the child of Titans. They made the heavens arch with rainbows. The desperate felt hopeful, the timid felt emboldened, the bold grew ready to charge. But Lido didn't want to raise hopes herself, nor embolden others, nor be the target of a charge. Colors uplifted the spirit, but also agitated it. Black was kinder, black settled the spirit. So it wasn't her fault when Zeus fell on her. Everyone knew Zeus obeyed no limits. He was a brash, entitled, bossy fellow. Yet somehow Lido felt sympathy for him. It couldn't be easy ruling the universe. Her fingertips fluttered on his cheeks and she cried inside for him. Besides, he was beautiful, so she accepted him as her husband. When she found herself with child, she looked for a suitable birthing place. She expected welcome everywhere. This was Zeus' child inside her. Instead, she was closed out. Rumor had it that the child would grow to be feared as much as Zeus. What? Gentle Lido would bear a god who made others tremble? How could it be? Certainly, some land somewhere would know this was a good child. She walked the earth, round and round, until her feet felt like stumps. And then the pains came. They started in her belly, but they moved swiftly to her back. Excruciating. The goddess Hera, Zeus' sister, came and put her arms around Lido and took her up to Mount Olympus. Hera whispered comfortingly. She pushed Lido's lovely tresses away from her face and put cooling compresses on her cheeks and forehead. Lido understood Hera's acts for what they were, the product of envy. Hera had become Zeus' next wife shortly after he'd been with Lido. But Hera was not yet with child. It didn't matter why Hera was helping her, though. Lido clung to her in raw need. For 9 days and nights Lido's body struggled with the pains of labor. Then it dawned on her. Water. She needed to float in water. She rolled down the mountain to the sea, and the waves washed her to the little island of Ortygia, where a daughter, Artemis, slipped from her as easy as a stream running downhill. What relief. They set out traveling oversea back to Olympus, so Lido could present Artemis to her father. Yet almost instantly the pains returned. Lido barely made it to the rugged Isle of Delos in time. She dragged herself up the Cynthian hill, her daughter tied to her chest, and, still kneeling, cast her arms around a lone palm tree, whereupon a second child came forth, leaping into the light. Apollo. His very cry was music. He was strong and beautiful. Faultless. Faultless, came the chorus that echoed Lido's thought. For all the goddesses had gathered, from the shyest nymph to grand Gaia. Zeus had had many children by many wives, but this was the first son, a true cause for celebration. They washed the boy, and swathed him in white, and fastened a golden band around him. The rocky Isle of Delos burst into bloom with flowers of every color, challenging the rainbow. Nearly overnight Apollo grew into everything his father hoped. He declared himself unswervingly loyal to Zeus and carried with him a bow and arrows to protect the will of his father. No one dared cross this archer, who never missed a mark. Yet there was something of his mother in him still. In peaceful moments, he played the lyre his younger half-brother Hermes gave him. And he often called to his side the Muses, 9 daughters of Zeus and the Titan Mnemosyne, who sang with harp voices that resonated in listeners' hearts and danced with light, agile feet that made the surface of the earth move in rhythm. Apollo saw them as his personal ornaments. And he often rode with the sun god Helios, source of colors, in his chariot across the wide sky. Apollo fancied himself as bright as the sun, and since he'd been born on the 7th day of the week, thereafter that day became known as Sunday. Lido doted on Apollo. When he was tired, She'd unstring his bow, close his quiver, and hang all on a golden peg in Zeus' palace. She'd bid him sit and patted his shoulder while Zeus gave him nectar in a golden cup. It's no surprise that Apollo became the haughtiest of gods. Artemis, goddess of hunt. All that fuss about Apollo's birth didn't faze Artemis. She was the older twin, anyway. Besides, love was not a fixed pie, to be divided up and then gone. Her parents Lido and Zeus both adored her. As for the rest of the gods, Artemis couldn't really have cared less who they praised or didn't. She felt no need for flattery. While Apollo was almost instantly an adult, Artemis enjoyed her childhood. As a bud of a girl, she sat on Zeus' lap and asked for a bow and arrows. Not huge, obvious, threatening things like the ones Apollo carried. She wanted slender silver arrows and a small, sweetly curving bow. But she didn't want anyone to get confused and think she herself was sweet. When her father presented her with these gifts, she gave his beard a quick yank rather than a dainty kiss. And when the great smithy god pulled her onto his knee, she plucked out the hairs on his chest, making the poor god look a bit like a dog with mange. No one could predict what Artemis might do next. And while her brother went in white, trying to make everyone confuse him with the sun god Helios, Artemis wore stylish high boots and a short tunic of many colors, and men looked at her. They said she was as dreamy as the moon goddess Selene. Though she didn't invite their glances, it felt good to be watched. Her brother surrounded himself with the 9 muses. Artemis surrounded herself with innumerable sea nymphs and wood nymphs. Plus she had swift hounds, some half white that nearly disappeared, they ran so fast, some with hanging ears that fluttered like feathers, and one all speckled brown and pink like a quail egg. Together they hunted rabbit and porcupine and gazelle and lynx and stag. No, this young goddess was never lonely. And, unlike Apollo, she never sought the praise of people. She preferred, in fact, to keep her distance from them, holding hands with her retinue of nymphs in wide circle dances that made the very mountains shiver with pleasure. It was only when birthing women found their labor pains too great that she entered cities, for there was something about her that eased newborns' way. It was natural, she guessed. Hadn't she herself flowed from her mother like a good wish, after all? She would put on gold armor and travel in her golden chariot pulled by brawny bucks with towering antlers, all bridled with gold, all caught by her with nothing but her bare hands, and spare these women so much grief. Now that was something worth getting praised for. But not all women recognized they owed their good fortune in childbearing to Artemis. One of the ungrateful was Niobe, daughter of the god Tantalus. She and her husband Amphion, a son of Zeus, had 6 brave and strong sons and 6 beautiful and graceful daughters. Niobe crowed with pride. She claimed the people of Thebes should make offerings to her, rather than to Lido, the mother of Apollo and Artemis. It made sense to Niobe. She had 12 children when Lido had only 2. She vastly underestimated the danger, making Lido her rival. Lido went complaining straight to her children, both famed archers. Apollo tracked down Niobe's sons as they hunted on Mount Cithaeron. He shot arrows into all. Artemis wouldn't let Niobe get off that easily, though. Only the cruelest of acts could make it clear that gods would tolerate no challenges. Artemis wanted the mother to witness each arrow as it hit the mark. She entered Niobe's home and shot arrows into her girls. Niobe sank to the ground like a stone. But again she was not allowed even this cold end. This bereft mother wasn't a senseless stone. No, no, she felt arrows hit her children over and over. She cried forever, a constant fountain. That sent a message, all right. Apollo could do what he wanted. But Artemis was a force to be reckoned with in her own right. Women knew it. That was enough for her.